and gentlemen.
You are now tuned in to Mastering Mitzvahs.
Mastering Mitzvahs.
A podcast focused on creating the perfect bar and bat mitzvah celebration, offering tips, tricks, and trends to ensure an amazing event. Mastering Mitzvahs. From New Jersey's own Explosive Entertainment. Explosive Entertainment.
I know you're gonna dig this.
And here they are, your hosts, Jordan Marshall, Dylan Weissman, and Mike Langzer.
Yeah. Before we actually hit go live on this, the world doesn't know this, but Dylan, you just paid me a compliment, and that doesn't happen often.
Wait, I paid you a compliment?
You did. You said I said something really bright earlier today.
Nah.
Yeah, I had a good choice of words, and I said something in bright, but so I wish that was recorded, but of course you said that before we hit record.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The truth is there. The truth is there. So here we are. We're recording episode 120. Maybe I'll get another compliment sometime through this recording in the next 30 minutes. But today our topic is, should you involve your child who's often 10 or 11, 12 years old through this process? Should you involve that child in both the booking process and the planning process, which are two different things? And there's a lot of reasons why we want to say yes. And then there's certainly some reasons why we're going to say, no, they should be shielded at least from some of the conversation. And we're going to do a deep dive over the next 30 minutes or so and talk about it. So I think we should start chronologically, though, Dylan. This was your topic that you wanted to talk about. Chronologically, a family starts reaching out for the booking process a year, year and a half, 2 years out. Should their son or daughter be part of it?
I think that you include them and their personality, but in reality, their opinions and style is going to change at least a little bit from 10 to 11, 11 to 12, and then 12 to 13. So I think the answer is sorta. In the booking process, it is a sorta. You obviously want to book someone that lines up with their energy levels and the way that they approach things. For example, if they're really, really reserved, then you want to find an MC who can handle that level of reservation. Or if they're wild and crazy, you want to find an MC or a company that's going to highlight that in a tasteful way. So that's really what I believe to be the extent of how you involve them in the booking process. But there's a lot of me that says no. I know it's weird to say, but no, a 12 or 11 or a 10-year-old, it's hard to be a part of the booking process because they don't know what they don't know. They've never planned it.
I think they're just not mature enough to make sound decisions on big financial items. It's hard for them to have an understanding of what a $2,000 swing in a party may or may not mean.
Right. I remember vividly, we were lined up really well with this one family. It was perfect in every way. We were a great fit for them. And their young daughter said basically along the lines of, the most important thing to her was this photo booth enclosure. And they ended up going with a decision to go with a different company based exclusively on the price of a photo booth enclosure.
So let's actually go backwards for a second then, because it's like, car shopping as an example. Sometimes you don't want to see the greatest, hottest, coolest, newest thing out there because you just can't afford it. It's just not within the wheelhouse. So I think in the booking process, certain shields need to be put up to shield the guest of honor from those moments. You don't want them to see something and fall in love with something that just isn't affordable.
Yeah, it's just going after the shiny things, right? And there's so much more than that involved in a planning process and hiring the right vendor. You don't want your child, and while you want to trust them and you want to cater and nurture to them and you want it to be about them, you're still the parent, you're still the adult, and I think that you need to take a little bit of charge in that. especially when it comes to that. Because like I remember, like, look, I believe I'm a great MC. Can I do a backflip? No. And there have been times where I have not gotten to do a bar bat mitzvah because it was a flashy MC who can do a backflip, not necessarily with my pedigree, but because he was able to do a backflip, got to do the event instead.
I'm buying you a trampoline, bro. That's your next birthday present. You're gonna be on this trampoline 1 hour a week practicing.
Right.
So first off, you gotta learn how to do backflips.
But do you hear what I'm saying here? Like,
I do.
It was like the flashy things that caught the eye of the 10, 11, 12-year-old instead of the talent and the backing.
So I'm kind of thinking it's like, we're both parents. I don't know if you do this yet because your daughter's a lot younger, but when we go to a restaurant and we show my daughter a menu, we give her, you have a choice of pizza, chicken fingers, or a hamburger. We're not presenting her with the lobster or the crab cakes that we know are way more expensive and will probably go to waste. So I think that the analogy here is that the parent needs to propose options for the guest of honor to choose from so that they are part of the process, but it needs to be within the reasonable wheelhouse. So we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about MC selection. I do think that the child should be somewhat part of the MC selection, but certainly not the end all be all. There needs to be a connection and a click with that MC.
So we're still talking about the booking process here.
Yeah, we're the planning process will probably be, the second half of this podcast, I'd say. So yeah, I think that the child should be part of the selection of who the talent is. But again, the parents have to first vet the choices and then present from those choices. That's ultimately it. You got to pare down the options.
Well, how often do we get like hey, my daughter was at her cousin's bat mitzvah and just loved your MC that was there, had such a good time at that party. And when you boil it down, the MC, like after you learn a little bit more about the family and the coordination process, the MC that they chose is not the right fit for a number of different personality traits. So then it comes down to, all right, so your daughter had a good time at her cousin's bat mitzvah. Why did she have a good time? Was it because we coordinated a really good flow? Or was it because the MC was that charming to her? Or was it because a dancer took the time to spend, with them? Like, what were the reasons? So
there's a lot of things. I mean, we could say pretty openly on this podcast that we recently had a client attend an event and they were unhappy, but it turns out they just didn't like the music that was selected by the host. So there's so many factors that make a party good or bad that sometimes are dictated by the client at hand, and the guests in the audience aren't privy to that information. So, the moral of this point here is that the teen should be only presented with the ideas that the parents are first comfortable with. Sometimes things like attending a showcase are like overly stimulating and they're going to see things that, may not be applicable. And look, you can't avoid those situations, or, that teen, as you said, attends another event. I mean, they might, you might have this rich uncle in Long Island and they might attend a 7-figure, $1 million event. They're going to come home and say, I want all that. But that's
Sure.
also not reality too.
Sure.
I think that's a big piece of it. But in the booking process, I'm going to say that the points that I don't think that the child should be part of is anything pricing wise. We've had awkward conversations with clients in front of the kid, and
really hard.
It's really tricky.
It's really hard. It's really hard to like have a adequate conversation because you want to handle it delicately where like, look, this kid is supposed to enjoy every part of this. And it's totally fair to teach your kid, financial responsibility when it comes to this stuff. And just like you use the example of, I'm not presenting the lobster because I know that it's not in our budget for our child. I love the idea of letting your kids choose things but not in a fashion that's hard on the financial decision making.
Right.
If that
Right.
makes
Yeah.
any sense.
You know, they can choose, which logo they like. You know, they could choose which party favors that they want. There's a lot of options for a kid to choose that, become part of the personalization, and also know your own kid. I mean, that's a big part of it. Know your own child. I think Dylan, you mentioned this earlier, but some kids want to be part of this, and some kids are way more mature than others too. I could think of some of the kids that we've met with, and we're talking to a 12 or 13-year-old that has like the personality of a 16 or 17-year-old. That child is absolutely capable of, and should be encouraged to be part of the decision making process. But some 10, 11, 12-year-olds are super immature, and it's hard to have them make decisions if clearly they're not in it. And I think parents, I think and we know too, like when we're sitting with a family and the kid is on the iPhone and his head is down, and just, I say his because it's more often boys in this situation, and they just frankly don't care. Well, then that kid may be not, privy to making decisions. But I'll flip it, and they often say girls are more mature at a younger age. Sometimes we'll have that bat mitzvah girl she knows everything that she wants. It's like she's been planning this for 10 years already. And maybe that kid is part of the planning process.
So it sounds to me like the big tip here is in the booking process, you want to vet it and then give your kid options. Now, in the planning process, I think that there's a lot more that the kid should have an opportunity to have a say in. And this is really, really important. Actually, this is where the topic of today's conversation really stems from, is sometimes there's no opinions by a 13-year-old. It happens a lot with boys, but they just don't have an opinion about things, especially parties. And what you shouldn't be like, what we shouldn't do is sound the alarm, because how often do you as a parent say, how was your day? And your child says, fine. Or what did you learn at school? Nothing. It's just a computing thing in their head. They're not ready to have that conversation. But over the course of time, you'll get little nuggets out of it. Like you'll catch them singing a song that they heard on the radio, and it's like, oh, you want that for your bar mitzvah? Like little things like that make a big difference. But if you ask a 13-year-old right then on the spot, especially in front of another person who they want to be either cool in front of or whatever, like you don't want to be put in a position where they say, I don't know, and then they feel bad about it. So the planning process, you want your kid to be a part of it a lot, but you don't want to force the issue. Let it be an organic thing.
So, as you're saying this out loud, I'm taking down some notes here. Some things, I think it's vital. I think this is a big point we need to make. It's vital that the guest of honor is part of at least a 5 to 10 minute conversation with their talent team, leading up to the party. That way the DJ and or MC have a good understanding of that child's personality and maybe their willingness to participate. But Dylan, there's certainly times that, too much input is bad. I mean, how many times have we gotten a song list that is just horrific because it's completely geared to, a 12-year-old, and it's going to, have a real negative impact on the party if we strictly follow that, teenage playlist.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that in the heat of battle, at the event, when you play 2 or 3, you kind of quench that thirst a little bit, especially if you play 2 or 3 from the top of that list, right, at the start of it. My request list last weekend was very much like that. And the parents gave me very little information about what to do with, like in terms of songs that they liked. But I knew that if I hit quick with the kids and got on with that, that I'll be able to play something later that would have also sparked their interest. So, as long as the kid has expectations where it's not going to just be their list, especially if the party is supposed to be geared towards everyone, then there's a time and a place for everything. And I think it'll end up working out nicely.
So I want to bring up the topic of working with an event planner. Somebody that you hire as a host to be your eyes, ears, and put all the puzzle pieces together. Every planner takes a different approach. There is no right or wrong. Some are super involved and hold your hand through the whole process. Some just kind of set you up in the right direction and they're there if you need to lean on. Um, some planners encourage us to have direct communication with our clients, and some prefer that all communication goes through them. Um, I'm going to say in that case, we still really do need a one-on-one conversation with the host family. Um, we love working with planners. So any planners listening to this, please take this for what it's worth. We actually prefer to work with planners in most cases, but you do need to give us that opportunity to speak with, mom, dad, guest of honor.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be, blocked from that opportunity per se.
Yeah. We can learn a lot from body language, from tone of voice. Like there's so much that we can learn from them by having that meeting where at least we're not a stranger in the process. Just hearing those words out of their mouth is so important to us that it builds a connection where we're not introducing ourselves for the first time at the event.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, Dylan, it helps alleviate the accidental game of telephone where family says something to planner interprets it one way in their mind, they describe it another way, and then the DJ picks up on an interpretation that may not be correct.
Yeah, you're already 3 degrees away from the kid at that point.
Right.
I want the kid to be a part of the planning process, especially when it comes to selecting the style and the approach and the the overarching theming and concept of the event. But then you gotta let us run with that idea, and we can't do that through a telephone.
There's a lot of leading questions that we know to ask as entertainers, direct to the family. Like if we don't quite understand the way they described it, we're going to ask qualifying questions to get a better understanding. And sometimes that doesn't happen through the game of telephone.
What is your favorite question to ask a kid?
I always ask, of the parties they've been to recently, what's their favorite? And more importantly, what's their least favorite part of it? And I love hearing the different reactions. Sometimes I love playing games. I love the prizes. Then all of a sudden my light bulb goes off and says, now I know what makes this child, excited. But some of them just say, I love to dance, or I hate when it's too loud, or I hate a long montage. Like all those things are really cool for us to hear.
Yeah, and those are real things that could be modified to your specific child, where if we don't have an opportunity to ask it, we could do the wrong thing for them, and we don't want that to be the case.
Do you have a favorite question that you ask?
Yeah, I do. I ask tell me about your 5 best friends. What
Okay.
are they like? Tell me about your friend group, because every kid's got 4 or 5 at that age, 4 or 5 friends, and you will know everything you need to know as an MC that you need to know about your party by hearing about their 5 friends. Who's going to be the troublemaker? Who's going to be the wild and crazy? Who's going to be the ones to be the first on the dance floor? Who's going to be shy and reserved? Which one are you most likely in that friend group? Hearing the dichotomy and the way that they work together. I want to hear about what they do when they all hang out. Are they listening to music when they're together? Are they playing games when they're together? What are they playing? Does that mean that this is a very competitive party where I can lean on the competition? Or are they a little bit more like silly and goofy and they like the showmanship of things? So by hearing about the friend group, that is really, really helpful in the planning process. And if I don't involve the kid at that point, I will never have known that.
So let's try to summarize this. Going back to the booking process, we want the child to be involved, but only after the family has narrowed down selections, vetted people who they trust. But now in the planning process sometimes is a year or longer. Dylan, do you think the guest of honor should be involved through that whole timeline, or really just as we near the party?
I think you should be involved in like the beginning phases, what I would call like the design phase, where like you can get your ideas about like, oh, do you want extra enhancements like Papa Shot or 20-player foosball or air hockey? Are those things that like light your bubble? because you need to know like a little bit in advance, 4 or 6 months out, if that's something that you want to build into your budget. And then I think that it's a little bit more hands off for them. And then I want them really involved 8 weeks out, doing song selections, getting the personality right, understanding how we're going to approach their event from a timeline perspective. I want to hear about it from them. So I really want them involved in those last 8 weeks.
I want to do something fun here with you. I love when we do these podcasts and we just kind of fly off the handle here. I'm going to throw at you, Dylan, different moments at a party, and you tell me if you think the child should be involved or not involved in the decision-making that goes into these things. So, the first thing I wrote down is the montage. Should the kid be in charge or involved in this photo selection and song selection for the montage creation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for the number one reason of your kid, it has to be the shining star. And if we can avoid any potential embarrassment, we need to do that.
Because how many times has we've seen a bathtub photo and the kid just is mortified? Why did you put that in my montage and show that to my friends?
Yep.
And I agree with you. Next one, parent dance. This is always an awkward conversation in planning. Is there a mother, son, or father, daughter dance? Sometimes it feels forced upon that child. Do you think that the kid should ultimately make that decision or not?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, they should be explained the importance of it and then make a decision.
Okay, I'll agree.
You can't just ask a 13-year-old, "Hey, do you want to dance with me at your bar mitzvah?" Because if you say that, the short answer is no. But if you explain the magnitude of it and why it exists and what the purpose of it is, I think that most 13-year-olds are they understand the emotional magnitude of it, and they'll be able to make a good decision at that point.
Here's one that's not entertainment related, but should they be involved in the menu selection?
Only after it's been vetted by the family. Like, there have been times where kids are like, all I want is macaroni and cheese. And if that's the only thing they want, just give it to them. Like, find a way to get that involved. But if they're like loose about the concepts, then you got to kind of narrow it down for them and then bring it to life. Like, if all they want is funfetti birthday cake style ice cream, get that for them.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like, hey, what kind of food do you want at your bar mitzvah? And they say, I don't know. That's when you gotta like vet it down. You gotta like kind of say, here's a menu of options. We get to pick 5. What do you think? Right.
I agree entirely. And the guest of honor should absolutely be involved in the kids' menu decision. But they should have no input on what salad or steak or whatnot the adults eat.
Yeah.
To do or not to do a candle lighting.
Yes, asterisk. Yes, okay. Asterisk. We talked about candle lighting on our last episode about formalities, and there's a reason why we do candle lightings. If you need to have a candle lighting to get those great posed photos and to honor those who have helped you get to this point, then the child doesn't really have a choice in the doing of it, but the approach of it, they have a choice in. For example, if they're really, really, really anxious about speaking in public and they're already having a hard time with their Torah portion, then maybe we do a pre-recorded candle lighting where the kid has an opportunity to just record a bunch of videos and then we play them on that behalf.
Right.
Or maybe the MC reads the candle lighting on behalf of the child or something along those lines. Like, if you ask a kid who's very, very nervous, do you want to do a candle lighting? They're going to probably say no, but you want to understand that is an opportunity for you to make them feel more comfortable by providing alternatives. So it's yes, asterisk.
Okay. I got 3 more on my list. To do or not to do games.
Absolutely, 1,000%.
Kids should totally be part of that.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
How about decor?
But not when to do the games.
Not when to do them. Correct.
Let that be we will decide the appropriate times to play the games that you love.
Yes. Decor. Should the child be part of the decoration selection process?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a really intricate theme, then yeah, you should let them be a part of that. But again, you've already vetted the menu at that point. Do you want green balloons or blue balloons should definitely be their decision. But to have balloons or flowers or crystal vases, like they all come with very drastically different price points. You should probably vet that ahead of time.
I'm leaning to no. They shouldn't have much to do with the decoration process for the mere sake of make a decision and move on. There's so many
hard.
decisions that need to be made. And the more people you ask for their opinions, like imagine if you said, do you like this centerpiece or that centerpiece? I don't know, mom. Let me think about it. Like, and then days go by. It's like, come on, pick one. Like the more people that are involved in making these decisions, the harder it is. And I don't know that a child yet can understand the grand scheme of what everything's will look like when it comes together. So to look at just a simple mock-up of a centerpiece versus the centerpiece on elegant linen with glassware around in a dimly lit room, I don't know if the child has the ability to make that.
I think you're right. I would maybe change my answer, but I think there are aspects that the child should be like logo design should be. They should be in total.
Yeah, they should enjoy their logos, right? Favors, handouts, prizes.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Again, vet it so that it fits your budget. But like, if the kid is not into bucket hats, don't get bucket hats. You know what I mean?
Right.
And take suggestions of what's working in the past. Like my favorite thing is families will say, "Well, what should we get for prizes?" And I say, "Go give your kid $200 and let him loosen Five Below and see what he comes back with."
Yes, perfect.
It's more like
I'm just going to say the same thing, but differently. Come up with the budget in advance and then present the options. Hey, we could do 10 sweatshirts, 10 hats, 10 t-shirts, or we could do 100 t-shirts, but like, that the cost of a sweatshirt is 3 times the cost of a t-shirt. So, you give that option. Do you want to have 100 t-shirts or do you want to have it narrowed down, but include 10 sweatshirts? Like present it as A or B without the gray area.
And that's a great learning opportunity for financial independence and understanding the value of a dollar in their party. And when they have a little bit more ownership, they take a lot more serious.
I'm going to give you my last one, which is the one that, you mentioned already. And I know it gets under your skin and makes you boil, but which photo booth?
To have it or not to have it is yes, but the drastic price differences in photo stations have to be chosen by the parents.
And like everything else we've said, just vet those options and present. You could do the ring roamer or you could do the open air. They're comparable in price, or, if the budget is endless, then you present, the immersive hard wall booth versus, the enclosed mirror booth. I mean, like once you get on that level, but don't even present that level if it's not in, in the wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to get over this one situation where everything was perfect. We had every single aspect of the design work done, and it was amazing, and the party was going to be incredible. And the kids' most important thing was the immersive photo station, which is a very, very expensive photo station. And they ended up going against everything we already talked about. And when I ask what's the most important part of your celebration, and they say the food and the dancing, but then they put all their budget into a photo booth, it just doesn't line up. And that's because they listened to the kid at the wrong time.
I knew I was going to get under your skin with this one.
Oh, I hate it.
You know what? There are a few more, and I want to not belittle the importance of them, but I do want to run through them. Choice of photographer, I think that's a parent choice, right?
Yep.
Choice of planner or decorator,
Parent choice.
And the most important, the venue.
I think that there are a couple different styles of venues that you should have your kid think about. Like, do you want a nightclub style facility, or do you want it to be like posh and elegant at a country club, or do you want it to be in a hotel? Or actually, if you have a lot of out of town guests, there's a lot of reasons to have it at a hotel. So maybe you don't even give the other options. But for that reason, like, you don't walk a kid into a hotel and say, "Do you like this?" Because the short answer is, I don't know. I don't know if I like this or not because I've never been to a party right here.
Dylan, neither of us are experts in the parenting world. We're figuring out as we go, and I don't know if there really is an expert, but the psychology behind everything that we're talking about is don't open up the door for input if you don't want it. So all of these things, whether it's budgetary, design reasons, logistic reasons, if you want to do the party in the temple because it's just so convenient, then don't even offer the child an opinion. Just, hey, we're doing the party here. I'm going to ask you for your input on the entertainment or the logo or the photo booth, but it doesn't become a question.
Right.
And pick and choose where you open up the door for those questions, because you'll slow the process down, as we were talking about before, with multiple opinions. And I mean, just think about if you have to explore 10 different photographers, 10 different DJs, 10 different decorators, 10 different venues. I mean,
I think I'm more like a 13-year-old than I realize, because you're talking about like these choices, right? And I'm in the process of building my home, right? And my wife shows me like samples of floors. I'm like, I don't know. Just like, show me 3 of them and I'll tell you what I want between the 3 of them. Like, don't give me more than that. My little bird brain can't handle much more than that.
Well, it's called the paradox of choice, right? And too many choices becomes a problem. I mean, there's science behind why restaurants have, a value meal with, remember, I think in McDonald's, they had like an extra value meal and there was only like 4 choices. What was easy? You were getting a cheeseburger or chicken nuggets, more or less,
Right.
Now you look at that extra value meal, there's 20 different options, and there's a 12B, 12C, 12D. Like, what the hell?
Right.
It becomes too hard to make those choices. So we should have brought a psychologist in on this call. But I think it was a good podcast. I had episode 120. Should we involve your child or not in the planning and booking processes, which are 2 very different timelines? Anything we missed? Anything you want to hit on?
Nope. I like it.
Cool. Sign us off.
All right, guys. Episode 120, Mastering Mitzvahs. That's Mike. I'm Dylan. Until we see you next time. Peace, love, and mazel tov from our family to yours.